So welcome everybody to the first meeting in cartography, Syntax Silk Road, because, well, Venice and Xi'an were the two extremes, but Padua is not far away from Venice, and well, Beijing could be considered the other extreme of the Silk Road, especially during Marco Polo years, since it was there, but also Lima Dio and the other people who literally walked through the Silk Road. And it is a pleasure to start with this event that will be followed by other 3 events for this semester. And we'll restart again in February. After the Spring Festival, we will restart again with other talks from hopefully all over the world. So I give the word to Professor Sifujian to some comments, some remarks, and then we can start the talk with Professor Linda Badan.
Okay, thank you, Joseph. I'm very happy, and I feel it is a great honor to say a few words before Professor Linda Badan's talk. Actually, this talk is named as this Syntax Silk Road Meeting in Cartography, which is co-organized by the Department of Linguistics at Padua University and the Department of Linguistics Beijing Language and Culture University, and also the International Association of Syntactic Cartographic Studies, Macau. As far as I understand, to prepare this series of lectures, Professor Poletto and Dr. Sun Yang Yu from the Department of Linguistics at Padua University, and also Dr. Giuseppe Samo from the Department of Linguistics at BLCU worked a lot. So firstly, please allow me to extend my sincere thanks to the 3 major organizers. And also, please allow me to say just a few words very briefly about our department and also about the International Association of Syntactic Cartographic Studies. Department of Linguistics, BLCU, announced its birth on the October 29th, 2018. So it is a very new department. It's in its infancy. The department now has 2 classes of undergraduate students majoring linguistics, which is the very first BA program for linguistics in mainland China. And besides, we also have MA students and PhD students majoring linguistics and applied linguistics, as well as a newly developed program named Language and Brain Sciences. And aiming at making the department one of the centers of cartographic studies, we have invited our respected Professor Luis Rizzi, one of the founders of the cartographic approach, to be the honorary dean of the department, which is such a great honor for us. And we also invited several the very famous linguists to be the committee members of the international professors, including Professor Belletti. We also organized several international workshops on cartographic studies, especially with the great support of the Professor Luis Rizzi and Professor Belletti, and also some other very important linguists. We will organize the 4th international workshop on syntactic cartography next year, if the conditions is permitted. If not, probably we can also think of organizing the online conference as well. Let's see. So probably we will announce the conference information via our website and also the linguist list the earlier of next year. As a newborn independent department directly under the university administration, we would begin our journey with the ambitions to create something new in future under guidance of the most updated and brand new perspectives in linguistic sciences, generative linguistics in particular. And our focus, one of the focuses will be cartography, syntactic cartography. And our door is open to all the linguists who share the same interests. So welcome, visit us in whatever way you like or convenience for you, delivering public lectures, offering course lectures, or moving to work with us in our department, just like Giuseppe Samo did. I would also like to mention a few words about the International Association of Syntactic Cartographic Studies, which was founded in 2018 in Macau, aiming at connecting all the cartographic syntacticians. We also have great honor to have Professor Luis Rizzi to be the honorary president of the association. And Dr. Samo is also a very important member of the committee. For those who are interested in joining us, you can also contact us and contact Dr. Samo. And I would like also to say big thanks to my dear colleague, Dr. Giuseppe Samo, for all the great contributions he has already made for both the department and the association and also for the Cartographic Society. Giuseppe is just like Marco Polo or Limadao in history. So in connecting the East and the West, in particular in Cartographic Society. So the name of the series lectures, Syntax Silk Road Meeting in Cartography, self-illustrated the purpose of the lectures, building a bridge between the East and the West, connecting linguists worldwide who are particularly interested in syntactic cartography. Last but not least, but most importantly, I would like to thank today's speaker, Professor Linda Badan, for accepting our invitation to deliver a lecture here. Actually, it has been a long time since a long time ago, we have been thinking of inviting Professor Linda Badan to visit us or to collaborate with us or to deliver a lecture. Finally, we have a chance to meet here online. And we also look forward to welcoming her as well as our dear friends physically when the conditions are permitted, hopefully before not too long. Thank you. Joseph?
Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Sivugene. And now it is a pleasure to ask Professor Linda Badan to present her work. And she is the perfect presenter because she used to be a PhD student in Padua. And I would say in an informal way, she's a kind of superstar in China concerning syntax. Her work on the peripheries of Chinese are extremely relevant for the study of cartography and the study of the grammar of Chinese. So she is now a professor in Ghent, mainly working on Italian, and Italian varieties. So this is the direction of the Silk Road. This time we go through Venice, and it will be the talk concerning discourse markers in Veneto. So Professor Linda Badan.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you very much for inviting me, of course, and to all of you, to Professor Sivugene, and of course, Giuseppe and you, and thank you everybody for being here. It's very nice. It's let's say one of the few positive aspects of this situation, let's say. So let me share my screen so I can, okay. Okay, good morning, everyone, and buongiorno and 大家好. I think it's appropriate for today's talk, and I'm very happy. And also because, you know, the title Syntax Silk Road is like a kind of representation of my personal and also research life for many reasons, of course. But today, Today, I'm going to speak about something related actually to the Italian part of the Silk Road. So the discourse markers, and in particular something related to Padova, actually, where actually I got my PhD. And I'm speaking about discourse markers in the regional Italian of Veneto, and now I'm going to explain a little bit what I mean with this definition. So first of all, the outline of the talk is the following. I'm going to first give an overview what discourse markers are, and then I concentrate the analysis on guarda te, literally look you. I'm going to show some tests to define this verbal phrase actually as discourse markers. I'm going to show the interpretations that it can have within context and the syntactic distribution. Then I will propose my cartographic analysis, and I'm going to also conclude with showing some ongoing researches on the same topic. The discourse markers have been defined in very many different ways, with many different labels due of the multifunctional and kind of puzzling properties that they have. I just chose these definitions by Bazzanella 2006 that contain different keywords crucial for this topic. So the discourse markers are external to propositional content, first of all. They are useful in locating the utterance in the interpersonal and interactive dimension, another very important definition, in connecting and structuring phrasal, inter and extraphrasal elements in discourse, and in making some ongoing cognitive processes and attitudes. Also, attitudes is really a crucial point of this presentation. Okay. So despite the different type of labeling and definition of discourse markers, scholars agree on the following properties in this list. So the discourse markers can belong to different grammatical categories. They can be verb-based, as those we are going to look today, adverb-based, adjectives-based. They are used mainly in spoken language. I just say mainly because, of course, you can find them also sometimes different kind in written language. They are highly multifunctional. And to do this multifunctionality, and it's very difficult sometimes to find a correct one-to-one interpretation and translation, especially between different languages. The interpretation of discourse markers are strictly related to the speech situation, and they mainly express the speaker's point of view. They don't affect the propositional content of the sentence where they are located, and they are characterized by limited agreement morphology and restricted syntactic distributions, as I will show you in a minute. They are typically a close phenomenon, and they are sensitive to close type or illocutionary force. They are intonationally marked and prosodically independent. So what we are going to look today is the verb-based discourse markers guarda te. Literally, guarda te is look you. So the first, the form of the second singular imperative, present tense of the verb look, and the pronoun you in an accusative form, because for who doesn't know, Italian has two. The pronoun can be tu, which is in a, let's say, nominative form, and te is in accusative form. Then there are other verb-based discourse markers like only guarda or vedi te and vedi. I'm not going to speak about them specifically, maybe at the end of the talk, I just point out some remark about that. So let's go into guarda te then. So guarda te is a typical variation, let's say, of the GUARDA discourse markers, very frequent in the regional Italian of Veneto. When I speak about regional Italian, I'm not speaking about dialect, but I'm speaking about standard Italian, just a few words, that has some impact and influence from the dialect spoken in Veneto. And precisely in the area, I tested speakers in the area of Padova, around the province of Padova. So GUARDA-Te, in fact, is like an Italianization of the dialect Varda-Ti, which can be in different variation, Vara-Ti, Ara-Ti. And I will show that this use as a discourse marker is meaning is bleach. It means that it doesn't denote anymore the real act of looking. This is a very important thing. So if we look at the properties of GUARDA-Te as discourse markers, just to show that this GUARDA-Te is completely lost its function as verbal phrase, we first look at the two interpretations that are strictly related to the context of speech. So the first interpretation is that one that I call as obviously GUARDA-Te. So let's take the context. The weather is not promising. The sky is black. All the weather forecasts for today are very bad. The situation that happens very often in Amsterdam, the place where I live. So there are two speakers. The first speaker says, speaker A, I think that you have to take the umbrella. And the speaker B answers, guarda te, non vedi che cielo nero? Look you, don't you see what a black sky? In this case, the use of guarda-te is used like a confirmation of something that is previously said. In fact, something very important related to this interpretation is that the obviously guarda-te must always be linked to immediately preceding context, and both the interlocutors must be involved in the conversation, and we will see this property later on. So the first important interpretation is like obviously, I would say. As I told you, it's very difficult to find a one-to-one interpretation, translation. Then the second interpretation is that one is expressing unexpectedness, a sense of surprise. Guarda te, è andato al ristorante senza dirmelo. Look you, he's gone to the restaurant without saying a word to me. In this case, guarda te is used to express the surprise, with feeling with respect to a situation. So these are the two meanings that I found testing guarda te with the speakers. Another property is, as I mentioned in the very beginning, is that guarda te is limited in an agreement morphology. So both in a surprise and an obviously interpretation is the second singular form of the present imperative. In fact, if we test a person, like the second singular, or the third singular, the first singular, and the first and second plural, actually they use the guarda te with this interpretation is excluded, both with a surprise meaning and the obviously meaning. I must say that when you use the guardate voi, the second plural, it can use in some context, but in that sense, it is interpreted like judge yourself, look at yourself. But we are gonna maybe mention it in the end, or I just make certain remark if you are interested to. So mainly, what I want to show here that in any case, the use of guarda te as discourse marker is fixed at the second singular person of the present imperative. Then guarda te has a limited syntactic distribution. So first of all, as I show you so far, mainly we find it in the left periphery of the sentence. In both cases, we have guarda te in the beginning of the sentence, as the examples that I show you so far. And then I tested guarda te in internal position, and it seems that guarda te, both with a surprise and obviously meaning, can't appear within a sentence. For example, in 5, with the surprise meaning, we can't have guarda te before or after the verb within the sentence. The same way in 5b, we can't have guarda te with the obviously interpretation, again, for example, after the this first verb on after the WH. Then if we look at the position and derived periphery, it seems that guarda te in the end of the sentence, at the end of the sentence in 6a with a surprise interpretation, it's possible. Even if actually I tested with 29 speakers, only 6 of them accepted it, especially with a pause in between. Come piove oggi, how it's raining today, guarda te. And then actually, but if we look at the obviously guarda te at the end of the sentence in the derived periphery is completely excluded. And I have also make you notice that this sentence is the same that I just presented 1 second ago with guarda te, which obviously interpretation in the beginning of the sentence. So today I'm going to concentrate on, in any case, on guarda te in the left periphery, because also it's something that I found with an enormous, a common, everybody, I mean, everybody I tested show same type of judgment. Then another interesting property is actually that guarda te can be used in isolation. For example, if you look at 7K, we have the surprisingly guarda te. Do you know that it disappeared with all the money? Ma guarda te. So with the guarda te, in this case, express surprise. And also in this situation, when it's used in isolation, most of the time, and it's high frequent, or it's more natural, let's say, uttering it together with but. That in that case, it doesn't work like conjunction, but it's again used as discourse marker. There are a lot of studies on ma in Italian, for example, by Ghezzi and Molinelli, and so far and so on, more from a functional point of view. And then if you look at 8, we see obviously guarda te. Again, can use alone. For example, after a question, should I bring the umbrella? Hey, guarda te. So in this case, again, guarda te, it means it is obvious. Also, guarda te expresses also a kind of sense of superiority when in this type of context. And also guarda te in this case is often used with other discourse markers, for example, or interjection, if we want to call an interjection. So I'm not going to talk about the particularities of the definitions. Also, another properties that define guarda te as a discourse marker is that, as I show you, it can co-occur with other discourse markers, but they can't be coordinated. For example, in 9, we have guarda te, vedi come è diventato famoso. Look you and see how famous he's become. So in this case, guarda te and vedi also, they both are interpreted like a surprise, and they can use together, but you can't add a conjunction in between and. And then, for example, another properties is that this guarda te, so as a discourse marker, can't be modified. For example, can be negated, like in 10, non guardare te che brutto che è, don't look you how awful it is. In this case, really look you with a sense of surprise is completely ungrammatical. Another property is, for example, that guarda te can't have clitics. Like you can't say guardalo or look you him or guardaci te cosa fa. Also in this case, both with a surprise and obviously interpretation. Here I show you only the case with surprise, but we have exactly the same effect with obviously guarda te is excluded, and also guarda te is undetermined with respect to the event time. In fact, you can't use it guarda te with a sense of surprise as obviously. For example, in perfect tense or with a participle. So this to show again that is kind of really a form that is does not have a variation in the morphology. And then again, guardate as commonly has been recognized with discourse markers is a main clause phenomenon and cannot be embedded. In 13a you can't embed lei ha pensato che guarda te che bello che è diventato, she thought that look you how beautiful it became. So this sentence is excluded. Also maybe in this case I have to admit because it's difficult, there is a debate in the embedded of exclamative clauses. And then in 13b actually it's different. It's really it clearly shows that guarda te can't be embedded as a discourse marker, like lui sa che guarda te bisogna prendere l'ombrello. He knows that look you with the sense of interpreted like obviously is necessary to bring the umbrella. Again, guarda te can't be embedded. But let's have a look at the difference. Actually, differences that we can find between the two guarda te. So between the surprise guarda te and the obviously guarda te. And I noticed that they differ with respect to their sensitivity to clause type and illocutionary force. So if we take surprise guarda te, we notice that surprise guarda te can use in any type of sentence as long it conveys exclamative illocutionary force, as long they express unexpectedness. So let's have a look at 12a. Guarda te che bella che era, look you how beautiful she was. So this is a case of an exclamative with a double K, typical of exclamatives in Italian. And here, of course, is clearly acceptable. But then look also with the rhetorical question. Guarda te, non è stata bravissima. Look you, hasn't she been very good? Also, in this case, we have a rhetorical question, and the rhetorical question also implies a sense of surprise, and the guarda te is perfectly fine. But if we look at yes-no question, guarda te è andato al ristorante, the sentence is really weird, so I can't interpret guarda te like surprise. And also it's excluded in echo context. Guarda te è andato dove? Also in this case, the sentence is not acceptable and is completely excluded in imperative, like guarda te devi mangiare, again with a sense of surprise. So it has a sensitivity to exclamative elocutionary force. If we look at obviously guarda te, actually, we don't see this sensitivity to clause type or elocutionary force. In fact, we can use it in any type of sentences. Let's take again the context of the weather that is very bad and the sky is black, and on the weather forecast for today is very bad. And then the speaker A claims, maybe I should take the umbrella. I can answer with a very different clause type. I can answer with a declarative. Guarda te, il cielo è nerissimo. Look you, the sky is very black. Like intended, obviously, the sky is very black. Or I can answer with a yes-no question. Guarda te, vedi che cielo nero? Look you, like obviously, do you see what a black sky? Or I can use also an imperative. Guarda te, dai, prendi questo. Intended, look you, come on, take this umbrella. In this sense, I just put it down some kind of natural sentences that I heard by speakers. So again, just if you look at 14.3, that die is literally means give at the second singular person of the imperative, but actually here again is used like a discourse marker intended come on. And then guarda te can be used also in exclamations. Here we have a declarative with a particular intonation that gives the exclamation interpretation. Guarda te, piove già. So look you, it's already raining, again with the obviously interpretation. then if we, so far, we have seen that guarda te can be clearly defined like discourse market. It loses this completely, let's say the interpretation like the verb of indicating the actual looking is bleached, and it's like a fixed form that whose interpretation depends of the context of speech. So if we have to locate it, guarda te in a functional spine, we have also first decided if it's a functional head or if it's a specifier. Because also we saw from works by Poletto Bonato, students studying some discourse markers or discourse particles in dialects. They analyzed these elements like head. But in this case with guarda te, I think that the situation is more complex in the sense that, first of all, I can't analyze as functional head because it doesn't have a unique meaning, can be used in isolations, as I show you in the examples above. And while in this case, functional heads typically cannot. So it seems that guarda te displays adverbial features. So looking at works by Cardinaletti, 2011-2015 for guarda, she defines guarda as a weak adverb. But I want to highlight the fact that guarda te does not correspond to guarda. And in another paper, I show the differences between the two guarda te and guarda. So we can't compare exactly the Cardinaletti analysis with my analysis here. But I noticed that, of course, also for guarda te, we have adverbial features. And guarda te occupies a very high syntactic position in the clausal spine. It has its own meaning and prosodic characteristic and has a scope over the whole sentence. But then we can, of course, we can't define guarda te as adverbs. Differently from adverb, guarda te occupy is a fixed position about CP. So as I show you, it's if you look at exclamative like che bello che è diventato, guarda te can appear, so how beautiful it's become. Guarda te can appear only in the beginning of the sentence in the left periphery. While, and it cannot be coordinated as other discourse markers, as I showed you before, but also with adverbs. So I can't coordinate guarda te with the meaning of surprise, for example, in 16b, with sorprendentemente, surprisingly in Italian. Actually, but if you look at adverbs, of course, adverbs can be coordinated, like I show in 16c, incredibilmente e sorprendentemente. Incredibly and surprisingly, how beautiful it became. But even if redundant, the guarda te and the corresponding adverbs can co-occur with conjunction. So in either case, guarda te must be higher than the adverb. Otherwise, the sentence is ungrammatical or infelicitous. So I can say guarda te sorprendentemente arrivato. Of course, it is redundant, but it's possible. Look, you surprisingly is arrived first. But I can't use sorprendentemente, guarda te è arrivato. It sounds really weird. Surprising, look, you is arrived first. This is even clearer if you look at guarda te interpreted like obviously. So guarda te, ovviamente devi prendere l'ombrello. Obviously, guarda te, look you, obviously you have to take the umbrella, but the opposite order is completely ruled out. Ovviamente, guarda te, devi prendere l'ombrello. So obviously, guarda te is excluded. So this just shows that guarda te must be really higher in the clausal spine. And also, 18 shows that guarda te can be followed by a complementizer, and I'm going back to the analysis of complementizer with guarda te later on, and adverbs cannot. So, of course, you can't say surprisingly that he arrived earlier. Sorry, it arrived first. There is a mistake. And while I can say guarda te che è arrivato primo. Look you that he arrived earlier. So using the complementizer in Italian. And again, with ovviamente che devi prendere l'ombrello is excluded, while look you that you have to take the umbrella, the sentence is perfectly acceptable. So first of all, then we have to speak about I speak about the syntacticization proposed by Larivée and Poletto of Guarda Te. I'm not speaking about grammaticalization because there are a lot of problems related to grammaticalization of these elements, especially because being a regional, a variety of regional Italian is very difficult to find corpus, especially spoken language, and analyze it from a diachronic point of view. And so I take this terminology from Hegemann and Hill, and also I propose here the definition given by Larivée and Poletto in 2018. So this is a process of fixation both at the pragmatic and syntactic level of grammar, a process in which the interpretation and syntax markers becomes increasingly fixated to reflect the typical interpretive and formal properties of speech acts. And again, speech acts here is another keyword for the second part of my talk. So surprise Discourse marker and obviously, surprise Guarda Te and obviously Guarda Te have conventionalized meanings in sense of Trogot and Conning that coexist with the imperative verbal form Guarda Te, because yes, this is very important. Guarda Te as an imperative verbal form is still there. We use it in the language. But in the use of Guarda Te as discourse marker, they have an intersubjective fatigue values that expresses the attitude of the speaker of her evaluation towards an object, a situation, or the discourse. So attitude and evaluation are really important in this, in the interpretation of Guarda Te. So where we can put, we saw that they are very high in the spine. They are higher than a complementizer. So we adopt the idea, the speech of the speech act domain. So the speech act domain is a syntactic layer above force P. So we're going higher in the spine, where the functional projections encode the performative aspect of illocutionary heads, the speaker's attitude, which is typical of discourse markers, the commitment towards the content of the utterances, and the speaker relations toward the addressee. And also, if you follow also Giorgi 2010, it includes prosodic properties. So we speak about speakers and addressees coordinates. If we look first as a surprise Guarda Te, in example, Guarda Te che roba pazzesca. Look you, what a crazy stuff. With look you interpreted like surprise. In this case, we can have one or more than one addressee without the necessity of resorting to second person plural. So if I can just have 2, 3 friends around me and telling them Guarda Te che roba pazzesca. I don't say guardate voi with a second plural. The presence of one or more than one addressee doesn't change the morphology of Guarda Te. And also, as analyzed by Holberg and Adar also, Guarda Te can be used in self-talk on inner dialogue, in the sense that they express, it expresses the unexpectedness typical of exclamations. And when you utter an exclamation, the presence of interlocutors is not required, in the sense that you just in front of a weird situation and you utter an exclamation. It's like something quite common. People don't really look you like a crazy one. But actually, it will be very different on Guarda Te interpreted like obviously. And then Guarda Te, utterance with Guarda Te as a surprise can be uttered out of the blue in reference to a situation happening at the very moment of utterance. So the use of Guarda Te in exclamatives is doesn't depend, actually, is not necessarily linked to a preceding context, linguistic context. So if we look actually at obviously guarda te, we see the situation is different. So with the obviously guarda te, we always need an interlocutor and a preceding discourse. Because guarda te, interpret like obviously, is used to assert and confirm what has been said in the preceding context of the conversation, and this is crucial. I define the surprise guarda te as speaker-oriented, because the utterance is primarily meant for the speaker itself, so it can admit it in self-talk, and obviously guarda te as addressee-oriented, because the utterance is intentionally directed to the addressee and linked to the conversational context that the addressee contributed to set up. So this is a crucial difference between two. So if we want then, we have the two guarda te, and we have to find a location in syntax and also a location that can express the speaker and addressee coordinating syntax. And we have seen also that guarda te must be considered an XP. Then I propose that actually the two guarda te occupies the specifiers of two distinct syntactic positions within the speech act layer that encode the speaker-oriented or addressee-oriented features. Because also, if we take Hinterholz and Munaro, for example, 2015, but also, for example, also Heigemann and Hill, we also should consider the speech act layer divided in two fields. One to encode the speaker-oriented discourse element, and one to encode the addressee-oriented elements. And Hinterholz and Munaro show this for some varieties for Bellunese and German. So, and following again Helen Kaiser and Spicentenni, we consider the speaker, in fact, the agent of the speech act, the utterance content, the theme, and the addressee, the goal. So the speaker-oriented markers are intended as those markers without a goal, and while addressee markers as markers with goals, just to give you a definition. So if we go back again a little bit and we look at surprise, the surprise guarda te is speaker-oriented, and obviously guarda te is speaker-oriented, addressee-oriented, we have to add also other properties. So if we look at surprise guarda te is speaker-oriented also because it expresses an unexpectedness, sorry, non-expectedness here, there is a mistake, unexpectedness towards an event or a state of affairs expressed by the proposition. So we speak about mirating element, so an element that expresses an evaluation by the speaker. And actually, if we look at obviously guarda te as addressee-oriented, we also have to add that it qualifies as source of evidence and confirmation what has just been said by the addressee. So summing up all these properties, I propose actually that guarda te, surprise guarda te, and obviously guarda te are located in a speech act projection, in the specifier of evaluate for the surprise guarda te in evaluative position in the speaker field, and actually obviously guarda te in the speech is in a specifier position of evidential projection. But this is not finished, because one important thing is also related to the relation between guarda te and the complementizers. So the presence of the complementizer che, that, or say if, following the surprise guarda te is possible and always optional. So we can say guarda te che è andato al ristorante senza dirmelo, or guarda te sei andato al ristorante senza dirmelo. So meaning look you, surprisingly, that if he went to the restaurant without saying a word to me. So with surprise guarda te, the complementizer is possible, both che and se, and they are in any case optional. It's very different if we go to the situation at obviously guarda te, because obviously guarda te admits the presence of che, only when the following sentence expresses an echo type of content. Let's have a look first at a non-echo. Again, the weather is very bad, and speaker A claim, forse dovrei prendere l'ombrello, maybe I should take the umbrella. And the speaker B reply, guarda te, che non vedi che cielo nero? So, guarda te, don't you see what a blue sky? In this case, so in the case where we don't have any kind of echo interpretation, there is not any type of repetition, the che, so that, the complementizer, is completely excluded. But if we look at another context, actually, obviously, guarda te admits the presence of che, that, only when the following sentence expressing an echo type of content, as I show. And very important, the presence of complementizer che is mandatory, while say if is always excluded. So let's have a look at 23. Speaker A say, fortunately, I brought the umbrella. You told me that you have named cats and dogs. And speaker B replied, guarda te che te l'avevo detto che avrebbe piovuto a secchiate. So guarda te that I said it to you that it would be rained cats and dogs. In that case, the presence of che is obligatory. So to sum up, guarda te with the obvious interpretation admits the complementizer only in echo type of context, and in that case, the complementizer is not only possible but is mandatory. So if we put all these aspects together, I will take in consideration the split for P's. For P proposed by Cornelia Zigrian in two distinct projections. So illocutionary force and close type. So we should also follow Core in 2018 for Kane Ibero Romance, but also in her remarkable PhD thesis, in which she makes a distinction between illocutionary complementizer and close type complementizer. So in line with Core, che and the se, so that and if, in contact with surprise guarda te, I would define them illocutionary complementizers, because exclamatives introduced by che and se can be root clauses endowed with an independent illocutionary force, while a regular complementizer generally does not introduce a main clause. Then che and se are always optional in the context of surprise guarda te, so they are not necessary, so they can be considered an obligatory subordinator. And the subordinate clause with a regular subordinating complementizer can be topicalized, while the exclamative clause in context with surprise guarda te cannot. So just here an example with a regular subordinator, Maria aveva previsto che Gianni sarebbe arrivato, Maria had foreseen that Gianni would arrive first. I can topicalize this with a regular subordinator, that Gianni had arrived first, Maria had foreseen it. But actually when I introduced guarda te che Gianni è arrivato primo, so surprisingly, look, you interpreted like surprisingly, with the complementizer, actually the sentence che Gianni è arrivato primo, the Gianni is arrived first, can't be topicalized. So in that way, I consider this che a different type one. If we look at the complementizer che actually following the obviously guarda te, as an example in 26, the sky is black, maybe I should bring the umbrella, look you that you should bring it, guarda te che dovresti portarlo. Here we have an echo context, and in this case, the che is obligatory, as I showed you before. And we can't consider it a quotation marker because the proposition introduced by che does not correspond to a same saying or a her saying, since the speaker expresses their commitment towards the proposition, confirming that what has been uttered above with a high degree of confidence. And then notice also the proposition can contain the eclectic, that refer to the previous sentence with the functions as topic. So maybe I should bring the umbrella, obviously that you should bring it. So the eclectic refer to the previous context. umbrella. And that the quadratic coordinates are different since they are those of the speaker. So we can't really use analyze K act like a contextual complementizer. So to conclude, again, I show you that we have analyzed this element in the speech act projection with the two projection where the surprise guardate and obvious guardate as the align in specifier position. And then I will divide a locationary force P between closed type P, where I located the locationary complementizer as a head in this case, and actually the subordinated K in the case of obvious guardate. So just before, this is my conclusion of the talk. I want, if I may, just add to show you that actually this studies is within a larger, let's say, extended study that I started once I arrived in Ghent. First, I'm already working on other VERB-BASED discourse markers, comparing then the discourse markers that I showed you in the beginning, guardate, guarda, vedi, vedite. It already shows that actually they have very different interpretations. They can appear in different syntactic position. And this is, so even if they are all based on verbs indicating act or looking, actually they are very different objects. And then we are also with my PhD student Elisa De Cristoforo studying the Italian discourse markers in L2 acquisition, produced by Dutch speaker Leni L2 Italian. Actually, we found some interesting cases that Elisa is elaborating now with the discourse markers that actually appear in the learners of Italian of L2, breaking the constituent, for example, between the article and the noun phrase. And then again, still within the Elisa's project, together with my colleague Claudia Crocco, we are focalizing our attention to allora, then in the left and the right periphery, analyzing the prosodic properties. Because it's when you look at the discourse markers, everybody mentioned about the prosodic properties, that they are usually prosodically marked, that you have pauses in between the discourse marker, the sentence, the following sentence, but actually we don't have real experimental evidence about that. And now it seems that allora in the beginning of the sentence and allora in the end of the sentence with different functions, they have also clear-cut different prosodic properties. And then, of course, I never leave Chinese, and I already wrote a little paper with my colleague, dear colleague Chiara Romagnoli, Roma 3, about still allora, na, in Chinese, comparing it with Italian, because it's what I've done basically all my life, doing Italian and Chinese comparative syntax. And it also, I would like to extend this work also to try to investigate this type of discourse marker that also Chinese have, so not only na, but also can, like look as well, and see how they are combined with the final particles, for example. So the final particles that indicate the attitudes. And yeah, this is again another part of project that actually we hope we will have with with my dear colleague and friends, Victor. And that's it. So I thank you very much for the attention, Shashadiman. And of course, I'm open the floor for questions, comments, whatever. Thank you.
Thank you so much for the interesting talk. If you have questions, okay, I can see that there are people raising hands directly on the video. I just move, or you can just type if you have questions on the chat, but I see the questions. I will, I don't see the hands anymore. Can you raise your hands again for having questions?
Or maybe
no, that was a clap. Okay, that was a clap. Okay. But I see a raising hands of Professor Poletto. I can give the words to her. And then in case you have questions, just type in the chat.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Thank you. I didn't know whether I had to use the blue hand or the chat or whatever.
Okay,
Sort of.
I see the blue hand.
I have a couple of small comments, Linda.
Yeah.
The first one is that it seems to me that in this area of these elements where you have a guarda te, vedi te,
Yes.
there is Veneto, but at this point I don't even care. You know, it's just a form that is interesting. There is also Saite, which has this sort of question feeling. I see that Enrico is nodding because he probably has the same thing, right? And it's interesting because it seems to me that the behavior with the complementizer and without the complementizer is exactly the same.
Oh, wow.
Probably different because it's most dubitative. So it could be that it's the other evidential.
Yes.
You know, you think that one of the two have an evidential value.
Yes.
And, you know, guarda te has the type of evidential value where you yourself have direct evidence, while Saite would be the one that has the value of, I don't have direct evidence, maybe someone else does.
Yes.
So it's interesting to include it in this sense. The other thing that I had was that you were talking about the possibility of adding it to, I think it was the slide 37, if I've noted it correctly. So you had both K and C.
Yes.
Were possibly going, and it seems to me that the interpretation is a bit different. So, guarda te che è arrivato in ritardo. Se guarda te sei arrivato in ritardo, it means it's more exclamative in the sense that there is a sort of scale of of possible things he could have done, and he even did the least probable one. So it's similar. It's
like scalar. It's a scalar type of. Yeah.
A scalar thing.
Okay. Yeah, that's true. Yes, I noticed the difference. Actually, I didn't include that, but it's different indeed. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
The last thing that I had is just a question. So if you look at imperatives, Zannottini and Portner also notice that there is an attitude towards the addressee.
Yes.
And since you have shown that it is possible to have guarda te with an imperative, wouldn't you have a double marking of the addressee in that case? Thank you.
Yes, I think so. Yeah. I something that I didn't think about that, but thank you. Thank you very much. It would be really a double marking here. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah, but also it doesn't surprise me in any case because the discourse markers are never obligatory, right? So they are always used. Also sometimes they have been defined like also relevance markers, something like that. There is a lot of literature on that they are, so the function of the addressees oriented markers is just to really focalize the attention to the addressee. In fact, also there are studies, for example, on Guarda by Walter Heide that shows that the evolution of Guarda, so why we have all these discourse markers coming from imperatives actually, because the imperative is used to really point the attention to the addressee. It is exactly what some types of discourse markers do. That's the thing. Thank you. Thank you, Cecilia.
Okay, we now give the word to Professor Belletti and Professor Rizzi, the other blue hand, and then Professor Coniglio. I have to unmute. Wait. Okay, perfect.
Can you hear me? Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. It's very interesting. I think there is a lot of variation in the regional varieties, right? Because, for instance, in my variety, which is, let's say, northwest of Italy, if I still have a coherent variety, which is not obvious, the evidential use is completely absent. So there's nothing like that. Whereas the exclamative use, the evaluative use, is present with a slightly different form, not guarda te, but guarda un po'.
Guarda un po'.
Guarda un po', which can be freely used with exclamatives. And there's nothing related to see, let's say, that could be used for evidentiality. So it's a kind of variation that could be expected. Now, looking at variation, I think what is particularly interesting with these constructions is that I would expect, or one should expect, a certain permeability between the phrasal nature of these expressions, as you show it's phrasal, right?
Yeah.
And the head nature, because clearly, you know, these systems have heads which can host phrases in the specifier, but then it's kind of easy to imagine that you could have a reanalysis. So something could become a head, and many of these systems seem to work like that. In this connection, I was wondering, but it's a kind of wild thought because I've never really looked at it in any detail, of what the analysis could be of ve, the expression ve, just ve, which is, well, I'm sure it's found in Veneto varieties, but no, maybe not. I mean, Cecilia says no. The variety that I'm familiar with is the Emilian variety that my father used. And
in which context, for example?
It can be used in exclamative contexts, for instance.
Okay.
And given probably speakers don't relate it to the verb seeing at this point. I mean, synchronically, it may have become a completely different thing. But it would be interesting to study if that could be analyzed as a head, because it's very short, right? It's not modified by anything. So that could be a possible avenue. In general, I think the connection between phrasal entities and heads is an important thing to study, because one expects rather different behaviors between.
Yes, thank you. No, absolutely. In fact, what actually the variety studies by Cecilia, in that case, if I'm not wrong, Cecilia, they are analyzed as a head. And also, I got inspired by analyzing these things also as specifier, also from Kane, 2016, that when he analyzes final discourse markers in Cantonese, and he proposes that actually there are heads covered, and then these these heads are actually like a small clause in the specifier positions. So that's why, because it was difficult in the beginning. I thought in the very beginning, okay, they are head, but as you said, it's very difficult in this situation, in these conditions, to really define them as head. But it's really it's not so clear cut. Actually.
Well, I think there is a real permeability between the two things. Kane makes the rather extreme hypothesis that these entities are always phrasal, but I don't think that's a necessary conclusion. I think it's natural to think that you can reanalyze things that occur after all, specifiers and heads are very close, right? So it's completely imaginable that you would reanalyze a specifier into a head. Let's take, say, denegation in English, not I mean, that's the first case that comes to mind, but it's a kind of reanalysis that is presumably very easy given the proximity of these two entities. So it may be interesting to look at things in this way, that you can reanalyze.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Can I say something?
Yeah, sure.
So I find very interesting the fact that these expressions use the imperative. And clearly, until Cecilia's comment, I thought that they use the imperative. Then there is a relation with the addressee, but you show that it's also a relation with the speaker. So it's the use of the imperative, apart from Cecilia's case with sapere, saite. It's so sapere has no imperative. So maybe the form, it's more like a formal requirement, a formal need that the imperative form is picked up, namely the fact that it is probably the poorest form from the inflectional point of view, and in particular the only real one, which is the second person, which is the one that loses the in some forms like da or fa and so on. So that's just an observation, but one has the impression that it's the imperative, and also with all this kind of exclamative or mirative or kind of judgment, like it's obvious you did not understand, oh, that kind of thing, go with imperative, but then that's lost. And gets lost, so lost that you can have it with sai, which is very weird to me, but I don't have this.
If you think about die, give.
Die,
Die lost completely the meaning. Even with guarda te and look you, we have still this kind of flavor that indicating looking in some way, let's say, but die is lost.
You also have pensa. You can have an imperative with pensa un po', ma pensa. So
yeah, absolutely, yes.
Impoverished from all perspectives.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you.
Okay, so now the last three questions, Professor Coniglio, then Professor Pan, and Professor Bocci.
Hi, Linda. Thank you very much for the interesting talk. I have a question. I'm not sure that maybe you mentioned it, but my child was playing here, so I'm not sure that I'm not sure. How do you derive the different distribution of the surprise guarda te and the obviously guarda te with respect to the clause types and to the different illocutionary types? Because I expected up to a certain point that you would say that obviously is a sentence external is has a different scope. Is at least for my intuitions, I think that some of these uses can be also, you can also have a prosodic break after guarda te. So in a sense, I thought it's an independent clause sentence, and then so with with its own illocutionary force. And I'm not sure that you share my intuitions, but I thought obvious is much more independent than a surprise. So, and this would have explained maybe the distribution, because the surprise guarda te is only possible in certain specific types you mentioned, while obviously can be used in all the types. So I expect it's outside of the scope of force or of clause. I don't know. Yeah. Do you have an explanation for that, or do you have explanation
I'm not sure.
Licensing or the different licensing of the different distribution of?
Yeah, no, what I showed that, for example, so the main difference that I've seen so far is actually guarda te is only an exclamative, basically an exclamation. So they have this illocutionary import, let's say. Obviously, it's like more, of course, it's obviously, and it selects and a subordinator in that case, because it doesn't have any kind of relation with the illocutionary forces. I show you there are completely, you can you can find in every type of clause type and any type of illocutionary force. That's why I noticed this very big difference. And also I analyzed from the prosodic point of view, and both of them, so you can see they are different. I didn't show in the presentation, but I can show you now, because wait that I open it again. And okay, what it is this one's, I don't know if you can see. No, you don't see it, right?
No.
Wait that I show you. Oh, I have too many things opened. Okay, this one. I show you is like really, wait, I'm lost. Wait, I don't find it anymore. This is no, sorry. Okay, this one. Voila, I found it. Okay, so this I've just conducted just a pilot study. We like with 15 people, and just to see the difference. And this is the prosodic contour of, obviously, guarda te, and this is a prosodic contour of surprise guarda te. And there are clearly differences, and one difference is that, for example, that obviously guarda te is much more detached from the sentence that follows with respect to surprise guarda te. So surprise guarda te in some ways more integrated in the sentence. In fact, it really depends to the locutionary force. While for the obviously guarda te is not. And we can really see two completely different kind of realization. So that's why I decided to, my conclusion where we were speaking about two different guys, let's say. So this is the idea. Yeah.
Yeah, but you share the intuition then that obviously guarda te could be sentence external, have its own.
But in any case, I put it in within the speech act, speech act field. In any ways, then
it depends how you
how you analyze it. You know?
Yeah, but then in that case, I would put the other one a little bit lower. But it's
I know this. The word order between the two is something very difficult to measure. Because of course I can't use them together, and also using something meaning surprise and something meaning obviously is you can't put an example in a sentence that cool. For example, I can use guarda te with for example sai, you know. No, sorry. For example, with guarda and sai, guarda sai, for example, you can't say sai guarda to just treat someone, but I didn't find it. I found very, very difficult to find examples with different discourse markers together to test the order with different meaning, as I think. Yeah. But thank you.
Professor Pan.
Hi, Linda.
Hi,
thank
Victor.
you for the wonderful talk.
Nice. I recognize your office. Oh, I miss it.
No, this is just a virtual background, fake one, but this is indeed my office actually. So actually, I have a question concerning the position that you put these two discourse markers. I'm wondering whether you have tested with the 3 or 2 types of topics in Italian, whether a hanging topic or left dislocated topic can intervene between the discourse marker and the rest of the sentence, with and without the presence of the complementizer K.
No, I
think if you, I think that it might be interesting to test.
Yes, thank you. No, I didn't test it.
But I think of this because fortunately your discourse markers appear on the left periphery, and then you can see clearly the hierarchy. And my trouble is that my particles appear in the right side, and when I test with the topic, and this is not so straightforward because I have to compare the semantic scope, but in your case, it's much more straightforward.
Yeah. If I think about now, I don't know if speakers of Veneto varieties agree with me. I have the feeling that they are always higher.
Always higher, yeah.
Right.
Even with with the hanging topic, the aboutness topic.
Yes, I think so.
Cecilia said yes. I see.
I think so.
Okay, all right.
Yeah. They're really high.
All right.
They're really high.
Okay, all right. Thank you.
Thank you, Victor.
And Professor Bocci, last question.
Ciao, Giuliano.
Okay, is it working? Thanks, Linda. It was extremely interesting. Thanks, and very clear. However, as Luigi said, there is a lot of variation across Italian. So for me, it was very surprising. Some of the observations you had were extremely surprising. And I would have a clarification question related to more general comment. So if I understood correctly, you said that guarda te can be combined with the obviously meaning with a yes/no question. And that was, if it's correct, it's very surprising to me, because I don't understand how you can combine the meanings in a certain sense. And I was wondering, maybe this part of the question is related to Marco, to Marco's question. Can you analyze guarda te, non vedi che cielo nero as two completely independent utterances? So guarda te can be used as a fragment to some extent, right? So in this case, maybe you expect that guarda, non vedi che cielo nero is just something else. Okay. My question is to the fact that I would expect, no, building on my very naive interpretation of what unexpectedness and mirativity can mean, I would expect that obviously could be obtained by reversing a scale of propositions ordered with respect to some whatever stereotypical source of organization, like it be bulletic or whatever. So I would say they are the same thing, okay, but they obviously, as surprisingly, but obviously is obtained by taking the lowest level of the unexpectedness. Okay, so I would have just a single element, and then I would expect that the different interpretations are obtained with the interaction of whatever. It could be an operator or just an external property. That's it. So that was my remarks, but
no, I understand what you mean. So in fact, that's why I started to look at the prosody. Because just to see if it tells me more about that, because in some recording that we've done, guarda te obvious, it's not obvious that guarda te is pronounced completely with a long pause in between the two. It depends on the sentence that you are using it. Surely, with a yes no question, yes, I think that you agreed in this case. Maybe we can analyze it with two different things, and maybe I have to refine it, but the use of che, so the subordinator, obligatory in echo context, it just allows me to say that actually guarda te in that case it's within the sentence, within the proposition in some way, because you have a subordination there. So in some cases you have guarda te, okay, that you can analyze as completely distinct from the rest of the sentence, but in some cases you have a grammatical mean that shows that. So that's why I want to go ahead and go deep into this study from a prosodic point of view, to test things in different kind of conditions. And as for your remark about the variation, I know, guarda te is really something that is really frequent in my area, and that's why I sought to study about it, because I constantly hear everywhere, and I was surprised myself that actually guarda te is not used a lot as I thought that it's been used. It's used, guarda is used everywhere. It's much more frequent than guarda te. That's for sure, and that's why I really need to call regional Italia of Veneto, because I couldn't say absolutely standard Italian. In the beginning, I didn't think about that, but then testing it, I realized that it was something related to Padova or around that, let's say. But thank you. I'm gonna think about that. Thank you very much.
We actually have a little small remark by Enrico. By Enrico Castro.
Enrico.
Hi, Linda. Thank you very much.
Enrico. Ciao.
For your talk. Very, very interesting. I was just thinking about a maybe interesting thing that in my competence, as you know, as a central Venetian speaker, I do agree with your judgments only if speaking strictly dialect, so with Varda. While I change into regional Italian, I keep guarda with the obviously significance, but with the surprising one, I change into vedi. Not the opposite, sorry, I read wrong.
Vedite, yeah, vedite, obviously, yeah.
I was thinking as maybe a silly comment that it can be still in the sense of addressee oriented, because you know that maybe the action of vedere is as a less involvement of the speaker.
Yes, less agentivity.
Exact.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
So, your direction is still on, while we may keep and take up a different element from the lexicon. And regarding exactly the fact that we were talking about the presence of imperatives,
yeah.
Regarding to decide to, I just wanted to say that we do not have the imperative with the allomorph sappi, sap. So our psi is also maybe an imperative, even morphologically. So we are in the direction of guarda, of vedi. We may have also psi as an imperative, even if we are speaking in Italian, because we keep like the morphology raising from the Venetian substance, we would say, okay?
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. That's why I'm really convinced that guarda te is an Italianization of Varti. And I always use it in some way, also because I have to admit that I'm not a speaker of Veneto dialect, in the sense that my father speaks dialect with all my relatives, with my brother, but he never spoke in Veneto with me. And in my family was forbidden speaking dialect. Because, you know, I come from a little town, Este, and not from Padova. So if someone not from the province, I've done the Liceo Classico, spoke in dialect, you immediately have been labeled like someone from the countryside. So that's why, you know, that's true. I'm sorry, but it's exactly like that. I couldn't say even a word in dialect at home. Actually, my father speaks all the time in dialect. My grandmother, with me, tried to speak in Italian, that you can't imagine the results. And also I noticed, for example, that also a lot of friends around me, when they talk to me, Cecilia laughs, but it's like that. They talk to me, they talk to me. We are in a group of people, they all speak in dialect. Of course, I understand completely. And when they look at me and talk to me, they switch immediately in Italian. And when I try to speak dialect, they tell me, Linda, shut up, speak in Italian because you're unable to. So that's why everything was born from these things, because I was convinced that I was Italian, and then actually it's not Italian and it's not dialect. That's why it intrigued me. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Linda. I think that we can thank again.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, everybody.
So thank you so much for the questions. Next week, we are going to fly over the Silk Road, in the sense that we are going to Japan, to Yokohama, where Professor Honda will present some recent work of his, and it will be the same Zoom link. So I will make a reminder, send a flyer, but it will be always the same link. Thank you so much to everyone for attending from all over the world. So the meaning of the Silk Road, from Brazil, from China, from Turkey, from Jordan. So it's a very nice result for the first meeting in cartography. Thank you so much. And
thank you.
Next week.
Thank you very much. Thank you. See you, everybody.
Bye. We will report